Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our virtual career chat with myself, Angela Forbes. Now, I expect many of you are grumbling about our changing weather, and with it brings colds and flus, and a few will experience a dip in their well-being. So I don't know if you saw last night, but Caroline has announced in March next year she will be running the Bath Half Marathon, and this is to raise awareness for mental health. Now, the mental health and the suicide prevention programme within Build Force are very important, and this is a way to raise funds and to save lives. Now, Caroline is a strong advocate of running to support her own well-being and mental health. So why don't you think about dusting off those trainers and registering online and showing us what you are made of? We are looking for a Build Force team, and it is a surefire way to beat those winter blues. Now, our chat this morning is centred around logistics, which sits at the heart of everything that we build. And as we know, behind every great leader in industry, there is an even greater logistician. So to discuss our topic this morning, we are in the company of greatness. So our first guest is Tim Brent, OB, Logistics Director at Jacobs. So congratulations, Tim, on your recent awards. And to John Spottiswoode, Director of Heathrow Logistics Integration at Wilson James. So I will pass over to our first speaker, Tim, and we'll switch our cameras off.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Angela, for that. That's very kind of you, and probably bigged me up a bit too much on that introduction. But yeah, I am Logistics Director for Jacobs UK, and that is not making cream crackers. That is Jacobs, one of the world's largest program managers, US by birth, a turnover of about $16 billion. 8,000 people working in the UK across many sectors: defence, nuclear, national utilities, and indeed most of the major infrastructure programs that you will have come across in the country, including HS2 and Thames Tideway and Heathrow pre-COVID, etc., and Hinkley Point, and the list goes on. A very large company with very many different sectors within it, and I am the logistics director for Jacobs, and I provide logistics leaders and strategies into numerous areas of our business across the country and indeed Europe. My history is quite apt to this sort of platform because a very long time ago I spent a short time as a soldier in the Royal Artillery, when everywhere I went was wet and muddy and cold, as opposed to some more recent ventures that people have had. And I distinctly remember when I left the army, when I made the decision to leave the army, about the relative lack of steerage into what comes next, appreciating that some of it's down to you as an individual, or me as an individual. I had a very short work experience in an office in London, I recall, which didn't fill me with any inspiration whatsoever, yeah, so kind of left to my own devices a little bit. Anyway, I joined the fire service, and at the same time I went back to school, which is probably what I should have done when I was younger, and I went to Kingston Business School. And from there I started working at Heathrow Airport, and progressed through various ranks and went to Cranfield University and did some diploma work there, and left Heathrow as their head of logistics, culminating in the opening of the new Terminal 2. And since then I've worked at Jacobs as described. I'm also co-chair of the Jacobs Veterans Network, which is very active in the role of recruiting service leavers and veterans. I think that bringing it into the modern day now, a number of things have changed the appreciation of what military and ex-military personnel can bring to the value of your offer as a company. Media and public support in recent years has definitely increased, and to the great advantage of the corporation and the individuals. The Armed Forces Covenant is key. Many companies, Jacobs included, have signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant, making pledges to say that they will make sure that there's a level playing field for people from the armed forces to be looked upon when recruiting, and indeed with the Employers Recognition Scheme, of which Jacobs are a gold award holder. We, like many of our peer group, now have dedicated people whose sole job is to act as the portal for service leavers and veterans coming into the business and looking for employment once they decided their service career is over. And the final point is, I would say, is that there's a really great appreciation now by all sectors, but logistics specifically, and not just in the world that I live in, but across the whole broad spectrum of logistics providers, a real appreciation of what the service personnel bring to their company. You're getting a ready-made product, if you like, and that's a wrong word, I guess, to use to describe a person, but you come very much self-sufficient and have so many skill sets that can immediately are transferable into this sector and indeed the wider business world, without a doubt. That's been enhanced over the last 1.5 to 2 years because we've seen military logisticians working alongside, if not ahead in many cases, of their civilian counterparts in the pandemic, and that has increased the lot, if you like, of such people. I've just come off a call just before where we were discussing very much where we are with our recruitment, and currently, just as my company, and it's not this isn't a sales pitch for Jacobs, this is an observation of a large company in this country. We've got somewhere between 50 and 70 people, service leavers, who have decided themselves that now it's time to leave, in our sort of process currently, where they're coming through, understanding what they want to do, maybe even suggesting roles that they don't even know exist in real terms, sometimes tailoring CVs and utilizing their skill sets to complement where we need those people. Industry is growing post-pandemic, and most definitely good people are required, and they're not easy to find. So I just wanted to give you that overview a little bit of the comparison to where I came from, and indeed to what's happening now. And there is a much more structured way of bringing service leavers into industry throughout loads of companies. A key linchpin in all of that are organizations like Buildforce. We're signed up to Buildforce. We absolutely see the value of what's happening with the Buildforce events. A real eye-opener for my head of military recruitment when we went to RAF Cosford a few weeks ago, and we're just going from strength to strength on that footing. But with the likes of Buildforce are absolutely key to this as a portal, if you like, for moving people into industry sectors. Purely on logistics point of view, it's never been more of a headline, as you can see, some of it warranted and some of it not, but without a doubt, logistics and supply chain management are absolutely key to the success of British industry moving forward post-pandemic. I hope that helps, Angela, for now.
It certainly does, Tim. Thank you for that. And if I could pass over to John.
I will hopefully turn my camera back on and my microphone back on.
Yep, you're back on, John.
Okay. I'm going to approach this slightly different from Tim because we're a bit of a double act. So I'm going to show you a couple of slides and probably take you through more of the practical aspects of what I found. The health warning here is I left the army over 22 years ago, so things have changed in the army. and I can assure you, you're very lucky people. I'll reiterate what Tim said. The support was not there in our day. Let's just quickly then just cover my military career and an interesting photograph. So I joined the Royal Engineers in 1978, so that dates me. I'm 63. My next career move, I'm hoping, is retirement. In my first 8 years, I went on 3 major expeditions. You can see one there. And if you look at the timelines, you can see how long I was away from regimental service. And I spent a couple of years in Northern Ireland. It dawned on me after 8 years that my career military was going downhill. I'd been in regimental service for probably 2 years. I'd spent most of my time, as you can see, having fun. So I decided I'd move my career up a step. I came back from this expedition and found all my coterie of friends that I'd gone through training with, all as staff sergeants, and I was struggling to make a full corporal at that stage. I also had another view. I wanted to organise my own expeditions. Unfortunately, the Army had a different view in that in those days, NCOs couldn't do that sort of thing as an officer's job. So I needed to become an officer, sadly, to carry on what I wanted to do in the military. Interestingly, those 3 gentlemen you see sat behind me, I'm on the Skidoo. The one on the left of me, he actually climbed Everest, which is what I wanted to do. And if you climb Everest today, you'll use his oxygen equipment. An NCO who now runs a company called Top Out, multi-million-pound company. The guy behind you, he's just sold his company for multi-millions. He's an NCO. And John Kimberley organised 2 other expeditions to the Antarctic. He's the guy on my right. So I'm a big believer in the power of the military NCO. Amazing stuff. So nothing happened in the way I wanted it to happen. There was no further expeditions as an officer because the Army decided to go to war. So I ended up in various Bosnia deployments in the Gulf War. And then at the age of 39, I decided I would need to leave. No fault of the Army, but I was probably glass ceilinged. I wasn't commissioned till 28. Far too late. The Army is great, but not overly adaptable. I couldn't do the right jobs in the right order. And I felt my life was outside. So the last 22 years, I left for a job. Head of Logistics, ICO Global Communication, a company you've never heard about. Why? We went into Chapter 11 receivership 6 months after I'd left the Army. So here's a shock. Left the Army, big I am, suddenly find myself, new house, wife, 2 children in private education, and trying to understand what the hell Chapter 11 receivership was. It's an American thing. Fundamentally, your company's finished. So a warning, it's not unusual. We'll come on to that in a minute. That's the reality of life outside. Interestingly enough, that was my first interview to get a job. My second interview was head of logistics at Telewest. For those that can go back far enough, Telewest was half the UK television industry at the time. The other half was NTL. I became their procurement director. I was then asked by one of my suppliers, Pace Microtechnology, to come and help them. I did a presentation to their board. I was going to second source them because they weren't very good. And the CEO wanted me to go there and help them put right all the stuff I'd pointed out that was wrong. So I went and suddenly became a fast-moving consumer goods electronics manufacturer. My experience was moving artillery ammunition. That's the funny part of life outside. I stayed there, and this is where I'll come on to it in a minute, and it's one of my key points. I didn't do any more interviews. The boss left after floating the company and went to Raymarine, another electronics company that he was going to float. And again, they needed their factory shutting and their cost moving to low cost in Asia and Guadalajara in Mexico. So he took me with him. So a move without an interview. That company was then hit my second receivership by the banking crisis in 2008. So we are impacted, similar to the military. You're impacted by geopolitical stuff. We're impacted by things like banking crises. 7 bank syndicate, 3 of them were Irish. They all wanted their money back. We go into receivership. We sold the company to some Americans. I survived for 2 years, but eventually was made redundant as seen as part of the failing team. That hurt. I suspect as senior managers, you'll be making people redundant in your civilian career. Please think about it. Even at board level, very comfortable, dinner with the chairman, nice numbers put on the table, it still really hurt. So 2 redundancies, 2 receiverships, 1 redundancy, 6 months consulting. And then my CO from the Gulf spoke to another colonel, Sean Kelly, ex Royal Logistics Corps, worked for Wilson James, actually worked for Tim. And they needed a guy. So I was asked to come to Heathrow, and I've been there for the last 7 years. So what's the takeaway for that? Average job expectancy, about 5 years. I did 2 7-year jobs, so slightly skewed. You could say 3 years if you look at my 7 jobs, 22 years. You will move. No job is for life outside. Your company could go to the wall or suffer unexpected downturn. Poor Heathrow currently lost 90% of its revenue. So these things happen. Not to be overly concerned about, but we need to be aware of them. Redundancy is always a possibility. And I've only had 2 job interviews. I want to explore that just quickly on my next slide. My first bit of 3 advice, of my first bit of 3 parts of advice, network, network, and network. Tim and I didn't have the opportunity. I don't think there was Facebook. There certainly wasn't LinkedIn. When I left, there wasn't the support processes around regimental associations, around Build Force. I have received 33 hits due to, I suspect, being announced going on this program. That's networking. I've taken the opportunity of inviting a couple of new people from those 33 hits to join my network. People on here should take this as an opportunity to join my network and network with me. Why wouldn't you? So I won't labour the point, but please get your LinkedIn profile up, get people to say good things about you, because everyone will, and you'll have great stories to tell. But please, every opportunity in your civilian life needs to be based on building your network. 7 jobs, 2 interviews. I think that says it all. Now, my next point. I don't believe this, but this is what people may tell you, and it's worth having a defence. The military Achilles heel is always thrown back at us, and it was thrown back at me as financial acumen. John, you don't have that. You come from a military background. I had an answer prepared before I went to all my interviews, and I explained that actually I had a lot of financial acumen. I'd raised over close on £500,000 from industry to fund expeditions. And I explained to people, as they knew, to get money out of industry and to get sponsorship is really difficult. And I showed how I'd been clever and how I indeed had financial acumen. So they may not ask that question directly, but please think through what you've done and have a defense against that. I believe maybe financial naivety. So maybe that's a little harsh, but let me just take you on to my next slide. This is the secret. Someone told me this. He was the CEO of Amstrad, or the COO. He worked for a guy called Malcolm Miller. And he told me once, I was about to make 460 people redundant in his factory. And he said, John, it's not personal. He said, this business we're in, this commercial world we're in, it's all about one thing. It's all about the money. Quite harsh, quite dry. We historically have been about honesty and integrity, building our team, supporting our men. And many companies will tell you, yes, it's all about our people. Yes, it's all about corporate social responsibility. Yes, it's all about sustainable growth. It is, but trust me, I've been in 2 companies that have been in receivership. Bottom line is, none of that happens unless you think it's all about the money. So all I would say to you in your initial years, whether you're working as a supervisor, whether you're working as a manager, whether you're working as a COO, before you put pen to paper, write an email, answer a question, just think about the money. it's absolutely crucial outside, and not something maybe in our background as military logisticians or military people we always think about. And just to bring that alive a little bit, please understand your numbers from day one so you can understand it's all about the money. Understand revenue, understand your costs, fixed and variable, understand the difference between markup, overhead and profit. Can you actually read a balance sheet? Do you know what EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax and amortization is? There is no excuse. If you're not familiar with all of that, just make sure that you've got that solid behind you. I wish I had some embarrassing moments. And there's some shocking numbers in what you're joining. You're joining low margin organizations, many working on single digits. To give you an example, a young captain I employed, obviously ex-army, very, very bright, came to me. He wanted a £30,000 manager. Okay, where's that going to come from? Who's going to pay for that? And he couldn't work out that on my profit, I had to find £1 million of revenue to pay £1 million of revenue to pay for a £30,000 head. That's what it costs. So I asked him where he was going to find his £1 million of revenue. And we had a difficult conversation about it's all about the money. One other thing, I haven't got a slide on it just before I finish. Remember, I left the army 22 years ago. The one big missing was IT skills, and I'm sure you've all got them. But if you're not a whiz on Excel and you have time to do a course, the last thing I would recommend is get yourself on an Excel spreadsheet course. I appear in the roles I've had to live on those, and I had to learn them through blood, sweat and tears, and again in my initial years some level of embarrassment. And finally, Buildforce. Does it work? And the simple answer is yes, it does, and extremely well. I am a user of Buildforce. Wilson James is a user of Buildforce. We have a number of senior people working for us. I've, in the last 2 years, have employed 2 senior managers, a naval lieutenant, an army captain. And very similar to Tim, I know what I'm going to get. I know the attitude. I know the level of intelligence. I know the drive. I know the ambition. I also understand the odd gaps I've spoken about. And for us outside, it's a low risk option. When you recruit someone outside, you get someone who maybe doesn't perform very well posted in. Not your issue directly. But if I employ someone, he's on my ticket. And if he's unsuccessful, I can assure you, in a relatively small private company like Wilson James, it stands out. You brought him in, he's your problem. So it's a low risk option. It's all about the money. It's also cost effective. I'm not paying large recruitment fees. So for me, win, 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 win. It's all about the money. So I've said enough.
Okay, can you hear me okay? And if Tim could join us, that would be great. Thank you for that. If anybody does have a question, please feel free to type it in the box or to raise your hand. You're more than welcome to ask any question. I'll kick off with a few. So thank you both for your presentations. That was excellent. Tim, our first question to you. You mentioned the Jacobs Veterans Network. So this will be for all veterans working for Jacobs to provide a community to share best practice, to support recruitment and to be there for each other. And this is becoming more and more common in industry in a bid to support good staff. What do you personally benefit from it?
Well, I think the first thing to do is we are an American company by birth, so the VetNet tag has been hoisted upon us from our sort of, a US sort of center. But we look at it more on a wider armed forces community piece, and that's reflected in our armed forces covenant obligations. So it's not just about, it is about service leavers, it's about veterans, it's about cadet force, adult volunteers, it's reservists, it's spouses of. When you've got a company like Jacobs, we've got an office in pretty much every major city in this country, for example, and different people like who work in some of the programs will move around the country over their career. To you know, might be working in Bristol for 4 or 5 years, and then the next one might be up in, you know, Leeds or whatever it might be. At the same time, you know, what we have an obligation to, and it's written in our Armed Forces Covenant obligation, is to see if we can then provide employment for the spouses of such people as well, which is really sort of extending the piece beyond vet, if you like, to the whole armed forces community. And what's really crucial here, and I'm sure the audience recognizes, is that you need support and leadership from the very, very top. And certainly my company and many other companies in this sort of league are exactly that. My last year, many people were deployed or mobilized as reservists for many months at a time, and went with the blessing of the senior leadership team immediately. I have got a direct link to our senior vice president in this country. I don't even have to go with a business case anymore. I just say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, can we do this, you know, and it's given the thumbs up straight away. So that's really important. And I think you know, there's a good social value message in all of this, but I think also, I think John touched on it as well, people know that we're getting high caliber people coming into the organization with extremely pertinent transferable skills, and people taking, you know, just landing and taking into it like a duck to water. Of course, those people need to be kept an eye on, and we do in our VetNet organization, we do have a mechanism of almost having a buddy system, just to make sure that somebody's got somebody to turn to if they're not quite sure. You know, my industry, just like the military, has its own acronym Bible, you know, and there's many things that seem a bit confusing and a bit alien, but that's the same wherever you go. That's the same for a civilian joining the military, if any of you can remember. Certainly I try to remember that far back. But yeah, so we're a really established network, employees network. You know, the whole concept that this isn't just supporting people out of charity. This is absolutely seeing the value that people bring to and how they enhance what we offer. We have people probably from virtually every single rank level in the British military, I would imagine, literally from one end to the other of the rank structure, from all services working within our ranks at Jacobs currently, and the appetite for more is absolutely there. And you know, it's a big playing field and people have a choice. So prepare. John said prepare. That is really important, and it's never too early to network.
Okay, so just in terms of, you referenced Jacobs there. For those that don't know, what does the logistics director do? What does your day job look like?
I've got fingers in many pies, really. A large part of our work is we are providing logistics, leadership and strategy into a number of major programs, and I can, you know, HS2 is one of them. There's something called Lower Thames Crossing, which is driving 2 new tunnels under the Thames Estuary, which is in its early design stage. Thames Tideway, which is the super sewer which is running underneath the Thames. We're very much involved with that. The Palace of Westminster restoration programme with the houses of Lords and Commons, the House of Parliament. We are logistics lead on that, and we're master planning that. Looking at further levels of the HS2, as it goes north. We're very much in that space presently. Strategic Pipeline Alliance, which is the East of England Anglia Water program, and so on and so forth. East West Rail. There's a number of different major programs. As well as that, we have many people doing things in localities, looking at traffic studies, freight studies. We're working a lot with our ports team because, for instance, if Felixstowe is expanding, that's because there's more containers coming in, and that means that the rail and road links need to be feasibility studied. That means that more warehouses will be built. And so on and so forth. And we're currently working with people like Amazon and Tesco, currently looking at how we utilize the river to deliver into London in this instance, and do last mile electric delivery into the city. So it's many and varied. I'm commenting currently on a project in Australia. We've got people very much involved with work in Germany, in the Middle East, and in Poland. And in pre-COVID, we were very much involved with a project in California. So my team are here, there, and everywhere doing all sorts of things. And yeah, I sort of sit at a fairly senior level now, and try and make sure that the whole question of logistics and supply chain management is part of the initial thinking and solution, rather than a quick add-on at the end. Because if you don't have your logistics in place, you suffer. And I think we've all seen that over the last 18 months.
And again, to you, John, the same question. What does your kind of daily life look like? Because you've got quite an interesting title, haven't you, over at Heathrow?
So the exciting things are when the phone rings that John Holland-Kaye, Chief Executive, is opening up Terminal 4, which is shut for COVID, and we're going to bring all the Afghan refugees in. And you jump in a truck with a guy, and with a company credit card, you're driving around Costco, buying nappies and powdered milk. That's what I would call the fun stuff, in a very sad, fun way, the exciting stuff. Heathrow have an issue. Prior to COVID, they were spending on the average of £50 million every single month on construction. I'm hoping everyone goes, no, they don't. I never saw that. I never saw a construction worker. I never saw a truck. Heathrow, there was no noise, there was no dust. Hopefully that is people's response, because our job is to make sure that you can do that. The big construction people, whether it be the Macy's or the Balfour Beatties or the Ferrovers of the world, can build huge projects inside a live airport. So we have a huge facility, not massive, 9,000 square meters internal, 11,000 square meters external, with a railhead. And that's where we store the construction material. And we do about 85% of our work at night. So when Heathrow shuts around 11:30, it opens up about 5:30 in the morning. That's when this whole new unseen world opens up. I still get goosebumps even after 7 years when I go airside at night. It's a completely different world. You've got to service and build a new airport. And it's impressive and it's exciting. And yeah, you must not impact the airport or the customer experience, but you're spending £50 million in construction every month. That's the day job.
Fantastic. Sounds very interesting. We've had a few questions that have come in, so we'll start with Robert Sanderson's first. A question to Tim. I was wondering what sort of qualifications you would expect to see on a CV for the role of a logistics manager.
That's a good one, really. I think more importantly, it's important to understand the experience of somebody rather than a piece of paper in the first instance. I get the point that there should be some logistics acumen behind that. I know, and I've been involved with this a lot with my sort of CILT and reservist head in the past. There's been a lot of work trying to make sure that the terminology between the military logistician and the civilian world align, so people can understand that. But I think initial qualifications are, your key experience. what you've been doing, what you've been running. That's the first instance. I would expect somebody to have the appropriate maybe CILT membership, and also some kind of related qualification with logistics or supply chain, be that Cranfield or however that's done through the military. But what I think, you know, I'm old enough now and wise enough to understand that I try and look beyond, you know, what's there in the first instance and try and understand the experience. That's tried and tested. I've got a guy working for me now as an ex-Royal Engineers. I put him definitely in front of one of my logistics leads on Lower Thames Crossing. That person, perfectly, absolutely great person in his work, wasn't quite sure, didn't quite see it. I cajoled him to have a chat with this person, and to the guy's credit who worked for me, 3 days later he said, sorry, I got the wrong end of the stick there. Now I've met this guy and I understand his experience. I think we should give him a run. That person's now moved on, and the service leaver in question is now the logistics lead on Lower Thames Crossing. So I think there's a bit of both for it. You have to have some kind of relevant experience, and what's really important now in my company, and I'm sure in lots of other companies, is rather than somebody just looking at it and not seeing it, just seeing it, the print on the page, we can absolutely understand the wording and with the experience, and we can convert that into the civilian world and say, all right, okay, I understand that skill's there. The next thing is, let's speak to that person, let's have a proper conversation and understand how they are as an operator, as a person, and then just dig into that experience a little bit more. So I would say you need to have some kind of relevant experience in the field. Interestingly, some service leavers sometimes don't recognize some of their experience is absolutely relevant, and I say that with all due respect. And then you pick up and you think, wow, that's really interesting, because we can convert very quickly the military experience and terminology into the world we live in, if you like, very quickly. And it's not, in my case, in my company's case, and I'm sure in other such companies, it's not a nondescript HR person sitting in a darkened room somewhere sort of going yes, no, maybe piles. It's not that at all. We're very, that's why we've got a dedicated military person, talent person, who can really disseminate very quickly what the military terminology is in the CV to how that might look in the civilian world going forward. So I'm not trying to go around the question, but I'm thinking relevant experience, and with that experience and over a period of time will come some kind of qualification, if you like, or certainly a position, if you like, and then that's the bit that sort of jumps out at us, rather than somebody having been to school for the last 10 years. I think there's a balance between the two, of course, and I'm absolutely amazed every single time now. It's come on so far, as John said, over a period of time now, that the list of qualifications that people do have and do undertake while they're in the military is absolutely amazing. But the key thing there is the qualification in itself is the experience as well. I think that's a key qualification, to see what people have done and understand what they've led and what they've been involved with.
Can I just very quickly add to that, Angela? If you have the opportunity to pick up the civilian legal requirements in terms of training, if you want to run trucks, you need your CPC license international. That's what you need. And if you look on various job specs, it'll be, you must be holding a CPC. If you want to deal with cranes, you need the relevant qualification. If you're in the construction industry, you need a CSS card. If you're in the security industry, so just make sure you understand the legal requirements before I can give you a job. I'm not saying I can't train you and won't train you, but if you turn up and there's two perfect people, they're perfectly the same, the one with a black CSS card, or the one with a CPC international, or the one who can do lifting plans, because he's an appointed person, they'll get the role. So understand what you're going for and understand the legal requirements to do that job. And if you can pick them up in any course that you can get yourself on or do it yourself, worth their weight in gold. Just makes you that bit more employable.
And does safety quals help as well, John, whether it's SMSTS or NEBOSH or IOSH? Just gets you up and ready, makes you employable.
Every meeting at Heathrow, as Tim knows, and probably at Jacob, starts with safety, 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 safety. And the other big one, mental health. So in both the construction industry, I'm saying this, it's a bland statement, we've almost stopped seriously injuring people, killing people. The major cause of death is suicide. And so, might sound daft, but come to me and show me that you're a mental first aider, or you've got an interest in that, or you've worked in that. And again, I'll go, that's the sort of people I need on site these days. But yes, all your IOSHs and NEBOSH, they never do you any harm whatsoever. And it adds to your employability and it makes you stand out from the crowd.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
and yeah, I think all of that is absolutely relevant. I think in when people are asking me when they're on their glide path out, Angela, and when they've decided that they're going to, even sometimes some of those people are a year or two before they get to that point, and they're saying that, what do they use their credits for to do training and things like that? In a lot of, in my world, I'm saying, look, APM's a good one, those sorts of things, and depending on what sector it is, as John's alluded to, in some certain areas, then they're also applicable as well. The learning credits, I think, if that's the correct terminology to use, it is amazing to me, because I never had anything like that. But that's really so I think the sooner people start thinking about their transition plan and start networking, part of that networking is to say, so what sort of things should I be looking at if I want to go and do that for a living? And that's where maybe you can add to your existing qualification base.
Okay, and a good question from Duncan Jenkins. So he's thanked you both for your presentations, but what he said is, what's the view on sending speculatively your CV to companies, and who should you send it to? So there's no role advertised as such. This is him just networking and.
Yeah. Well, John, if I go first on this one, I think one of my key phrases, I think, whether it's somebody coming out of the military or not, or whether it's just civilian to civilian, if you want to do something, if you want to catch a fish, put 3 or 4 rods in the water, and but what I would say is, and I'm not saying it just because I'm on this platform, what I would say is that what you should do with that before you start doing anything like that is to link up with somebody like Buildforce, because then they can really give you some real key pointers about what that document should look like before you start speculating with it. And also, you'll be not surprised that Buildforce have a massive network themselves and can put you in touch with appropriate people as well. Yeah, it's great to speculate. You've just got to make sure that when you throw that dart, it hits the right person. And I alluded to before that if it goes into some kind of sort of back office somewhere, then sadly that can be quite dispiriting, I'm sure, for the individual. Whereas if you go through, for example, Buildforce, they'll say, yep, we know exactly who to speak to in the following 20 companies. And before you do that, let's just have a look at your CV and make sure it's in the right space, and all those sorts of things. And then you've got you are targeting your marketing appropriately. That's what I would say from that point of view. Be careful, because you could throw it out to 200 companies, you think, but it might only hit 20 people that actually are the people you want to hit.
I don't think there's such a thing as a speculative CV, personally. And I think if you send out 200 CVs, it can be damaging to your morale. The internet didn't exist. Facebook didn't exist. LinkedIn didn't exist in my day. Do your research, and what you may think is a speculative CV actually isn't. Find the company you want, find out why you're relevant to them, and then start searching and finding who's in that company. or who do you know, or which regimental association, or where did that colonel or general that you know, David Shoesmith, I know exactly where he is, and I will ring David if I want the contact. So you know a lot of people, and there will be hundreds of people that left 6 months before you. Get on that LinkedIn, get linked into these people, and your CV is no longer speculative. You're not just throwing it at a blank wall. You're then turning it into something where it will be useful, which is a lovely letter to someone. Dear so-and-so, I met so-and-so. I've looked at your company. I've got all the skills. I'm exactly the guy you want. Please, if a job ever opens up, I'm your man, or pass it on to someone else. And I've done exactly that only this week. Someone came through. I'd interviewed them from Buildforce many, many months ago, I think nearly a year and a half ago, and they got another job. They've now come back to me with a speculative CV saying, John, probably nothing going on at Heathrow. And I've passed it on to our construction side of our company, which is growing at the moment. And I think this guy is going to get a job. So you could say speculative. No, he knew what he was doing, and he approached the right company, and he showed me all the differences between his last CV a year and a half later and all the qualifications he got and the courses he'd got, and he highlighted them all. So I could see the effort he put in 18 months to turn himself into the finished article. There you go. So I don't think anything speculative. Do your research. The tools are there. The days of me and Tim just sending 50 CVs out to X, Y, and Z company addressed to the HR department, they're gone.
Okay, two very, very good answers. A question from Steve. With nearly 20 years of experience in the transport element of logistics, how easy is it to transfer this experience to general logistics management?
I'll jump in because that was sort of my idea. Again, check all your qualifications. I come back to that. So make sure you're legally allowed to do the job. Management is management. What did I know about electronics manufacturing when my experience for 20 years had been moving artillery ammunition? Nothing. I knew about people. I knew about projects. That's what I knew. I had a set of skills that actually weren't job specific. And so moving around inside transport, inside logistics at the management level, if you've never managed a warehouse before, it's still relevant that you've got a CPC and you understand trucks, because a large part of warehousing is trucks. I'm sure there's something relevant in what you've done. I don't think you should be limited. If you've got the right personality and you come to me with the right and you want it, I'll get it for you, because you're the sort of people I want. Don't limit yourself.
And I would follow up with that as well. I'm quite close to this. I think that anybody in that world at the moment needs to be looking forward, looking into the net carbon debate and innovation. So absolutely draw on your experiences in the past, not least in managing people and fleets, etc., and all those sorts of things. But it's a fast moving game now. Our truck fleets of the next 5 to 10 years will look very, very different from what they have been. The net carbon agenda is not a buzzword. It's happening. And freight is a massive part of that, especially in this country where so much of it goes on the road. So there is need for people who know what they're doing, absolutely. But really look forward to what's the new thing, because it's going to be here so quickly. The amount of R&D going into that space now is massive. So really, really, in the same sense we've just been talking about networking and etc., really read into the associated, the RHA, the Road Haulage Association, etc., and freight transport, and really read in to what's happening in the future and what's the next thing, because that's what you're going to be coming in to manage, not managing what was happening 5 years ago.
Okay, good question. And one from Duncan again. How much is the sector moving towards remote working?
I'll start this one, John, for a minute, because you've probably got a slightly different angle on it. Now, depending on what you do for a job, of course. Some of it can't
Yeah.
be remote, and some of it can be remote. I was away quite a lot of last year. I was mobilised, but my team obviously followed the law and were working from home, etc. And only now are we coming back into some kind of hybrid working. Now, again, from the top and leadership from the top, various surveys have been undertaken in my company, and I'm sure across other companies as well through the pandemic period, have shown actually both with employee and client that that productivity was the same, if not better, in many cases. That's not the case in every single job, of course, I get that. But I think that for some roles, and certainly in some of the roles that I'm talking about, that there's definitely a need for people to come together and meet face to face. There's nothing quite like that person to person sort of engagement. And we saw that, when we were up in Cosford the other day, Angela, it was fantastic to be in amongst all of that and people. And I've done the same with our team, but I think it's going to be a real hybrid. I think it's going to be follow your diary, do what you need to do. If you need, if you're better off spending 8 hours at home on a Friday or a Wednesday or whenever it is. And I think that there might be some people who say it's absolutely important that you need to be here to do a certain specific job, then that goes with the role. And I think John probably has a lot more people working in that space than I do. But from my point of view, if you need to go and check a warehouse on a Tuesday and meet with the client to talk about that, you don't need to be in the office on Monday from 9 till 5. Just, there's no need for that. There's plenty. We've got the ability to work remotely through our electronic wizardry. I get the point; it doesn't always work, but most of the time it does. And people are a lot better for it. And this links very much with mental well-being as well. So it's a serious issue. Everyone was really worried about people just sort of, sunning themselves in the garden or whatever it might be, but that hasn't happened. People have been very self-sufficient, very self-driving, and it's testament in the main to the workforce at large. But John's probably got a different angle on this because of the sector he works in.
So it's a revolution. It's not evolution. It's been a revolution the last 18 months. And I hope it doesn't return. As a manager, it's given me a lot of flexibility. So yes, obviously my HGV drivers have to come in and drive a vehicle. My security guys have to be on the main gate. I think everyone knows that. But after that, I'm managing it and I'm learning. This is not years of experience. This is a year. And I'm having to tailor it to individuals. So I've had someone who hadn't seen their mother for 2 years. Brilliant person I wanted to retain. They were really thinking about leaving and going home being Canada. I really didn't want that. They've gone home for 6 weeks. They've only had 2 weeks holiday, or they only had 2 weeks holiday. I didn't want them coming back having gone there. They worked from Canada and managed to do a fantastic job for me. So that's the flexibility you've got. I've got other people that they just need that personal touch. I go in the office on a Tuesday as an example, and there's a gang of people that come in just because they just need that warmth of being in an office, having a chat around the coffee machine, and all those little things that go on. They're just those sort of people. Not good, not bad. They're just what they are. So I'm trying to cater for a spread of people. Me, very happy I'm in my sitting room at the moment because I have a bit of an IT fix, but in my garden shed, very happy. Don't need to drive the energy of other people. There are other people that I know that need to get a bit of energy from me. That's what I'm paid to do as a manager. I'm paid to be there and motivate. If I can't do it through the Teams medium, and some people just want you there and need you there. And so you've got to provide that for them. So it's a mixed bag, is probably what I'm saying, but it gives you amazing flexibility. And it's the one good thing, in my view, that's come out of COVID. And I hope UK PLC and big and small companies like ours and Jacobs, like Tim's, embrace this and give us as managers the opportunity of using it as a tool.
And just on that support then, a question's come in from Des to say, let's assume all the legal requirements are in place. So assuming you're coming into construction, you've got your CSCS card, you've got your safety quals. How eager and willing is industry to invest in somebody's personal CPD? So if that individual wanted their employer to pay for a master's or to invest in some legal or financial training, is that their sector and employers willing to invest in their staff?
I'm very lucky. I have a fantastic client in Heathrow. So I can tell you now, I've got two of my senior managers, one an ex-captain, one an ex-lieutenant, both doing MBAs, actually being paid for by my company. But I have to, as part of my contract, have a number of people on doing apprenticeships, as an example. So I'm trying to think. I don't think there's not a single person in my management team, slightly reduced due to COVID, who isn't either doing an apprenticeship or is on an MBA. Every single one is being trained. I say through Heathrow, they have a thing called the Heathrow Academy, and they write it into your contract. You have to go and spend your apprenticeship fees, and they want to know. I'm trying to work out. I think it's even linked to the value of your contract. I don't want to say too much commercially, but yeah, I am commercially encouraged to do that by my client. How good is that? I'd love to do it anyway, but what a great place to be. That the money is there internally in my company, and my client is encouraging me to do it. The strange thing is, I'm having to push my people. And the only pressure I find is giving them time. So if you're doing an apprenticeship, in theory, I have to give you a day off. 20% of your weekly work needs to be put against your apprenticeship. But we work as a team, and we've overcome that. And yeah, all my managers are doing some form of training paid for by us. I'm looking at Tim. Jacobs will have a massive training budget. I suspect if you turn up and you want to do it, the answer will be yes. I know it will be from Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a very extensive. There's a lot of in-house training for different things, which are really highly credible. Absolutely. But likewise, we've got an extensive apprenticeship scheme. We've got graduates that are doing postgraduate stuff. We've got people that are going back and doing masters in all sorts of things. As we have a link to a number of different universities across the country. I've never ever seen anyone stop because they say we've run out of budget or anything like that. People are, it's an ongoing process. That time for that is allocated within the coding for the timesheets, etc. Yeah, it's highly encouraged. As much, we're speaking a lot recently just now about recruitment. Equally important in our world is retention.
Crucial, critical.
And straight away you might look at the salary, but it's terms and conditions, it's culture, it's attitude, it's hybrid working, it's CPD, all those things bundled together to retain what your workforce you're investing in. So yeah, absolutely. And I suspect that, and I almost know that our peer group within Jacobs, that the people that we view as our competitors will all be doing the same.
Okay, fantastic. Duncan has raised a comment just to say that there is a finance for non-finance managers course out there, which is really helpful. It is free of charge, so we can forward that information on. Just one final comment from me then. So it does sound as if there are a lot of striking similarities between military logistics and civil logistics. It's definitely given those listening the comfort and confidence that this is a discipline and sector they can pursue. The opportunities are there. You've both referenced that you are recruiting some parts of your business more than others, but there's definitely some roles available. You've both, again, addressed that to move into logistics, you don't have to just be that logistics manager that's boots on the ground. You are able to progress through the ranks as well. So it is open to every rank also. Just one final question to both of you. What do you most enjoy about your specific employer? Tim, what do you most enjoy about Jacobs?
I think the freedom I'm allowed, and I don't mean freedom for me to wander about, the freedom of thought, You know, I can, I mean, you know, my line management is great. You know, I just sort of drop a line and say, we're going over here to do this, and we're going to go and speak to these people. Am I okay to do that? Because I just want to make sure that we're not treading on any toes in other parts of the business I don't know about. And they say, no, off you go and do that, report back. You know, if I, you know, so we speculate sometimes, of course, looking for new business and different things. And but the freedom and being quite rightly held accountable, but just being treated like an adult, albeit I am a senior person now in the organization, but nevertheless, it's just we just got freedom. Jacobs absolutely are a people company. Absolutely, I would say that in every respect. Even had a conversation only yesterday with one of my team about, because they hadn't used up their full annual leave quota at the end of our financial year, and they said, oh, business needs. And I said, right, well, business needs versus annual leave, there's only ever one winner, ever. You know, especially in what we do. You know, we're not doing what some of you guys have been doing in recent times. We're not MI6, we're not brain surgeons. You know, the business will still get along quite happily while you have 2 weeks off, and it will still be there when you come back. And I can say that with the strength, because I know that that's my leadership would be saying that as well. The well-being of my people is absolutely paramount. And I'm sure other companies could say exactly the same thing, but absolutely it comes through in spades within Jacobs, that it's people. Happy people have good productivity, full stop.
Okay, and John, question to you as well.
I'm going to say two things. The first one is a great advert. While I'm on here, I need a stores controller, please. And I need them to start next week. If anyone has a CV, do not be probably speak. Thank you, Tim. Probably speak to Angela, or you'll track me down if you're clever on LinkedIn. Not that clever. Yeah, I'll tell you all about the money, and you need to be close to Heathrow, but there's an open job straight away. So another happily employed ex RLC chap, hopefully. So I've worked, as you know, I've worked for 7 companies in 22 years. If you look them up, you'll see some are American, huge corporate operations, some private companies, some are public companies, small, medium, and large. I'm currently working for a private company. The 2 founders, Mark and Gary, still own and run the company. And so I'm one person away from top man. That is totally different from being about 15 in an American corporation where no one knows your name, no one knows who you are, and your ability to have any impact on the ship and change its direction is 0. So one of the things I would say when you're looking at companies, just think about if you've got the job offers, and it's not just I need a job. If you have the luxury of going, do I want to be in this size of company, that size of company? Just think it through, because it's very, very different. Jacobs is very, very different from Wilson James because of the size and scale of it. So I enjoy that. I didn't know I would. It's the smallest company I've worked for. But from the day I walked in, the fact that I can literally just talk to the owners and get a decision made. So the most important thing for me at Heathrow, and Tim will know this, Tim used to be my boss. He would ring me up and go, I need this and I need it now. And I could ring up the boss and go, Tim needs this, Tim needs it now, sign it off, done. No big communications. It was very much like the army. I like that. There's a problem, you need an action, go do it. We'll worry about the commercials afterwards. When I'm saying it's all about the money, it is. But when you've got great relationships and the right size of company, you can put those in the back burner and go, actually, it's all about the passenger experience and 8,000 bags at T5 that need sorting out. And Tim will remember the day we got hands-on, leading by the front, and actually spent an afternoon moving a portion of those 8,000 bags. And if you need 10 guys, 20 guys, trucks to do that, we'll supply it and worry about commercials afterwards. That's the agility of a small company. And I've really enjoyed that in Wilson James, the fact that I don't feel like I got my feet stuck in concrete.
Fantastic. Well, there's two very, very strong advocates for the logistics sector, and I thank you both for joining us this morning. It's been an incredible conversation. I've really enjoyed it. To all those that have dialed in into your questions, thank you. To all those that are on LinkedIn already sending requests, thank you. I've just seen a few come in, so thank you for that. Just a quick reminder to those that are watching, obviously the Build Force service is completely free of charge to our candidates, so use us. We are here to help you and to bring you into industry as elegantly and as sophisticatedly as we possibly can. Now, just a reminder, 2 weeks today, on the 21st of October, we will be having our virtual career chat with Atkins. Caroline will very much be back in the chair, so we'll have our big smiley face back with us in 2 weeks' time. She's at a CTP event today. But thank you all for dialing in. I wish you all a very safe, wonderful, wet weekend, unfortunately. But everyone take care, and thank you again. And we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Best of luck.
Yeah. Speak soon.
Very much.
Bye.
Thank you very much.